Sumaru, Sopanalanda Chiola Judo, Africa Samaru, Uganalanda Tiola, Gambia Samaru, Sopanalanda Chiola Judo, Africa Samaru, Uganalanda Tiola. So
to start with, is the breaking story that everyone is talking about now, and it's regarding the Commonwealth and the decision that the announcement that was made yesterday. Could you explain what has been the reason behind the big announcement and why now?
First of all, I want to welcome you to the Gambia, and we are very proud when we see African magazines being published by Africans. I know this is not a new magazine. I've been reading it since I was going to school. It used to be African Now, West Africa, and New African.
Yes. Going 46 years.
Yeah. So we've come a long way, because you see that Africa Now has disappeared, and
West Africa as well.
Yes. So the breaking news, it's not supposed to be breaking news, because we want to be very independent of anything that has a vestige of colonialism, especially where the same old story goes: one person decides and that's it. And we believe that we are better off being our own than joining institutions that do not want to listen to you. They tell you do what we want and not what you want to do. So after 48 years of independence, we have enough of Britain. We have enough of colonialism. It's not taking us anywhere but backwards. And we want to be free, to be able to be ourselves. Because remember that our this year's independence celebration theme is live according to your religion and your culture. And so Commonwealth is not a religion, it's not a culture. We want to make sure that we remain Gambian and true and independent of all institutions that have anything to do with colonialism. So this is the reason we decided to quit, and people are saying that, I'm even surprised that people think that you should have a problem with somebody before you leave the person.
Exactly.
I don't think so. I don't have to have if I have a problem with somebody, I solve the problem with you. But what I'm saying is the Commonwealth is a neo-colonialist institution, and we are not going to subscribe to that anymore. It's not only the Commonwealth, but any institution or organization that has that legacy, or that is representation of the colonial era. We're not going to be part of it, because colonialism brought us nothing but poverty and backwardness and exploitation and slavery. In fact, also, we cannot today continue to be associated with a country that was responsible for slavery in the first place. And nobody, the Jews have been compensated. Other people are being compensated. We do not even have an apology from the Great Britain, which orchestrated slavery in the first place, and then colonialism. Colonialism and slavery came together. We were not human beings. The idea of human rights, good governance, freedom and elections never applied to the colonial subjects. I used to tease him and say he's the youngest man, the Minister of Information. And I used to ask him, when was the first and last time he participated in elections during colonial era? To the extent that Gambians were never trained to be scientists or doctors. And I believe that there has not been any country in Africa where during the colonial era they trained indigenous people to become either doctors or scientists.
Why do you reckon there's this backlash then against such, if you explain it in such a way that you have explained it? Do you think it's a way of still trying to hold back the advancement of Africa? And in your view, do you think your decision to do that today is something that should be taken up by other African governments in the Commonwealth?
Well, you're a journalist. You've traveled the world. Now, can you tell me one African country that is well developed today, that can be compared to Dubai or any Middle Eastern country, thanks to the West, or thanks to a former colonial master? And what I'm saying is, if you follow, you can never lead. We Africans have been following, and that's why we are always backwards. It is high time that we stop following and be on our own. That's my message to Africa. Now, Africa is the richest continent in terms of mineral resources. But the poorest of the poor, the wretched of the earth, live in Africa. And, in fact, most of them are found in countries that are exporting in large quantities valuable resources. I won't name those countries. How is it possible that a relationship where one is becoming richer all the time and one is becoming poorer, the one becoming poorer will be very intelligent by half to follow the one who is enriching himself at the detriment of the one being impoverished. The relationship has not benefited any African country. Any relationship with not only the West, but most of the outside forces from Europe is a relationship that only benefited the Europeans and not Africans. Now, who are the Europeans? By the color of their skin, that they should always teach Africans what to do. From colonialism to now, they think that they are the gods of Africa, that they should tell us what we should do. And Gambia is saying no to that. So, if you realize that if you don't dance to their tune, they call you a dictator. Yes. Elections will never be fair unless the opposition they sponsored wins the election. Then the elections are free and fair. But then they impose this idea of term limit. And in most European countries, members of the Western Bloc, there is no term limit. Okay, but also they have monarchies in almost all the European countries. Oh, that's normal. Oh, that's royalty. And a member of the royal family can go on a honeymoon that can build 10,000 schools in Africa. That's normal. But an African who is a monarch say, oh, this is the same to Africa. He's an absolute monarch. Whatever he says is bad. Even buying a plane is bad. He shouldn't do that. And they spend 4 billion or more than 4 billion pounds on celebrations. An African president spends $2 million for his birthday, and it was headline news because they created the psyche, created their mouthpiece, the Western news media, to propagate their ideology that we Africans must listen to them, and this is unacceptable. So, going back to a question as to whether other Africans should follow suit, I think it is in our best interest to follow what benefits us. If you follow something that is always keeping you backwards, I don't think you are being intelligent or doing service to people to follow. Colonialism or neocolonialism in any form should be kicked out of Africa. That's my belief, because it's not bringing us anything but disgrace, but humiliation and insult. None of those countries that are talking about African democracy, human rights, lack of it in Africa, still poor Africans have to scrape their pockets to pay for the visa. When during the time of the vampire called the empire, when people like him were younger and they used to look up to the Empire Day. They told us that, oh, we are all British, but you are colonial subjects. Do you understand? There are no visas for Gambians to go anywhere. Yes. After independence, they say, oh, now visa. And the visa is not free. You pay. Now, who was giving them visas when they were coming to Africa and they were hungry? So if you have a relationship where you are all the time feeding me, and I say, hey, you're my best friend. And when I have more than enough and you don't have, I tell you, oh, you cannot come to my home without calling me. Is that fair? Are we genuine friends? No. Africa's relationship with the West has been Africa losing and the West gaining, and that will continue as long as we do not take a stand. And for me, the Gambia, we are not going to follow anybody but our religion, our culture, and our people. I'm a servant of the people of the Gambia.
So that would be with the Commonwealth. But your critics, Mr. President, will come back to say, why just the Commonwealth, which probably does not have didn't come with any economic benefits at all, but probably you are part to other organizations that probably the Gambia would rely on in terms of economic advancement. So do we see this as a beginning of the Gambia or Africa standing on its own feet without Western help of any kind?
Look, let me not be misconstrued. What I said is very clear. Any institution of a neo-colonialist and colonialist nature. Okay? I am not saying Gambia. What I said is very clear. We will not support any institution, we will not be a member of an institution that is neo-colonialist. So, that doesn't mean I'm anti any international organization. No, I didn't say that. What we said, and what the reason why we left is that the Commonwealth is a neo-colonialist institution, and also is the only institution where the leadership is not subject to elections, and the leadership is not subject to change, and you cannot even question it. So what type of democracy are we talking about? The UN, we have the Secretary General changing every number of years. The AU the same, the OIC the same. Why not the Commonwealth? Do you understand? Where one is the supreme life leader.
Do you think the British will say you're only just getting at the British?
Oh, so if the British think that they own the Commonwealth, that is a good reason for us to leave. Why would they think that they own the Commonwealth?
And in terms of other institutions, now that we have made that clear, we've got the ICC, which is led by the formidable, great woman that is a former member of your cabinet. What are your views on an institution like that, which has had a lot of backlash from many Africans, including some African governments? And I would like to know your views as an organization that is led by one of your own.
You said the ICC, just like any other institution like the Commonwealth, Africans are fond of jumping into institutions, become membership, ratified, and then read the text. After you have ratified, you have become a member, you ratified, and then you read the text and say, oh, what have I gotten myself into? I warn my colleagues then that we must be very careful jumping into one bandwagon after the other. From globalization, we jump into it without even finding out we jump into every bus without knowing the destination. And then when they stop in hell and say all Africans drop, say, oh, why Africans, why are we here? Do you understand? We have accepted everything created by the West without even questioning it. Now, just recently, there was this arms trade treaty that is detrimental for Africa. Because what it's saying, all these countries that are pushing Africans to be members and ratify, they are all nuclear armed countries. And they still hate Africa, they are racist, and they are eyeing our resources. And then you tell Africans to join an institution, they say, oh, Africans cannot buy arms. Do you understand? But coming back to the ICC, now in every institution, there is what is good about it and what is bad about it. But I'm not also speaking as an African, as a Gambian, and as a Muslim. But more importantly, I'm speaking as an African. We, Africa, the African continent, constitute one of the largest blocks in the ICC, and for which ICC came on its feet very quickly and took root. Now, I made it very clear that before we make a resolution accepting this, we have to understand what it is for. Because we've burnt our fingers on several occasions. Oh, no, this is clear that this and that and that. The ICC, they say, is very clear. Then came the indictment of Bashir. Some were in for it, some were against it. And they started talking about it. I said, this is what I told you. They indicted a sitting African president without even informing the AU. Who can indict a European president or a prime minister outside of Europe without informing the European Union? This was an insult. So, and they said, oh, the matter was sent to the indictment came as a result of the UN Security Council, to which no African is a permanent member, decided to refer Bashir's case to the ICC. Okay, that is, it's one of two ways of getting somebody to the ICC, either by the country itself or being referred, the case being referred by the Security Council. So, now, to be fair, I'm speaking between me and the Almighty Allah. That when I hear my colleagues complain about the ICC, I feel ashamed, because the cases that they are talking about, and turn around and say, oh, ICC is following, apart from the case of El Bashir, all the other cases were referred by African governments. Do you understand? The case of Kenya was referred to by the then government of Kenya. The case of Laurent Gbagbo was not arrested by the ICC. He was arrested by his own people, own government, and handed over to the ICC. Joseph Kony of the LRA was referred to the ICC by the Ugandan government. As far as I know, there is not a single case, apart from that of Bashir, where an African government didn't refer the case. The ICC also, as far as I know, cannot just go into a country like that without the country exhausting all the legal requirements. But all the cases, as far as I know, that are currently under at the ICC, referring to Africa, were referred to the ICC by African governments. And then we turn around and say the ICC is racist. Well, they're following only Africans. If only Africans refer cases, if you don't want the ICC to treat cases, let us not refer cases to the ICC. Period.
So you do not agree with the notion that the ICC targets Africans because it's not actually the Africans themselves have chosen to?
No, I do not agree, and I will never agree to it, because at some point in time, there was a move by some African leaders to endorse the arrest warrant, the indictment and the arrest warrant against El Bashir in Sirte. And I made it very clear that if you have a problem, it is very shameful that we Africans, when we have a problem among ourselves, instead of being brave and put it before the AU and solve it. You want to use international institutions to solve our problem. If you have a problem with Bashir, deal with Bashir. But this AU is not going to endorse the arrest warrant.
So you must be very proud with what my sister and the lady, Mrs. Fatou Bensouda, is doing at the ICC.
She's an international civil servant. I'm proud not because she is a Gambian. I'm proud because she is an African woman. This was a post that, to be quite honest, is not meant for Africans to head. But today, if Africans head an institution, I think you should work with the institution, especially an institution where we contribute a great deal to have it created. Do you understand? Whether it's the Gambian who is there or not, if they go on out of their way without being requested, they go out of their way to target Africans. I will be the first to tell them to kick them out of Africa. But these are cases that we reported. The case of Kenya was reported, and I told them in Addis when they were trying to make money. I said, look, I think the best thing we should do is work out a mechanism with the ICC to say, okay, now that there's a new government and the leadership is elected, I think let's find a way of allowing the case to be treated by the government of Kenya. I think it would have been more honorable to negotiate than just throw wild accusations. I'm not defending the ICC, but I'm defending the truth. The truth is, Joseph Kony, whatever case I know of that is before the ICC, these are cases referred to by African presidents, except that of Bashir of Sudan.
Thank you for making that very clear, sir. And coming to the Gambia, I'm so proud that I've actually come to this country, and what I've seen so far really is very impressive. It's the first time I've been here.
Despite what you heard.
Despite, exactly, it's when you see it firsthand, and I've got a lot of friends that are Gambian, and they've seen the transformation that has happened in the past decade or so. And it's very impressive. I was just discussing with one of my colleagues about, just a few years ago there was no university, there was no television station. So there's a lot that has happened within the short period that you have been the president.
You say a few years ago there was no university.
Am I right? Probably.
Okay. That is part of the answers to the reason why we left the Commonwealth.
Yes.
The British were here for 400 years. They never built a high school.
Exactly.
Okay.
No high school.
For 400 years, no high school. Then 30 years of so-called independence, no university, no high school. Also, the government of the day never built a high school for 30 years. Never built a single hospital. Do you understand? So, even the British built only one high school in 400 years, and that is called Armitage High School. And that was built for the children of traditional rulers in order to appease them. No, it was not open to everybody. It was meant for the children of traditional rulers. That was the only school they built in 400 years of occupation. So, how many years would it have taken us for us to have a college, then the university? Maybe 1 billion years. So how do you expect us to continue to follow something that is always kicking us backwards? Yes.
Exactly. No, that point is really, I'm so glad that you have actually explained to our readers why this decision was taken, and I think it's something that the readers will be the judge on this one. But the Gambia now, as it is, there's always, you've just been to the UN, and the press that came out of your speech at the UN, as usual, expectedly, for some of us who are in the media, we expect the media to react that way. But what do we see in the next, maybe if we look ahead, in the next 5 years towards the end of this term and probably in the future, because you've done quite a lot in the short period that we have been in power. And despite all this backlash that is coming and the positive story not being told, if my mother, lives in a small village in Malawi, wanted to read about the Gambia, what can I tell her and what can I say to expect? Because the Pan-African dream is about telling the story of how Africa is actually doing, whether be in the Gambia, whether be in Zambia, South Africa. What do we see in the Gambia in the next 5 years?
5 years is a long period of time. In the Gambia, you see changes, positive changes every 3 months. So I will tell you that if you come to the Gambia in 1 year from now, you will see something different. You will see more advancement. In the next 5 years, we want Gambia to emerge as one of the leading economies in the third world, not only in Africa. But in 5 years from now, we want to see a Gambia where maybe 1% of illiteracy, the literacy rate should not go beyond 1%. We want to make sure that 5 years from now, we want to make sure that there will be no referral of medical cases to any other country except in extreme conditions. 5 years from now, we want to, you come to the Gambia, you want any student you see going to any institution, be it university or what, has free education. That is what you expect Gambia to be in five years from now, by the grace of the Almighty Allah.
Yeah. For a country that is, not very natural resource based, and if you read from our colleagues in the media, in the Western media, they always think the Gambia's success has actually really been based on foreign aid. How do you react to that? And if you are going to be talking about moving forward even more development in the next few years, how does the Gambia sustain itself in terms of that economic advancement?
Those people that talk about foreign aid that build the Gambia, let them tell me or tell you one infrastructure that is built based on foreign aid. Now, is it not contradictory? From 94 to date, they have never given me a respite. They have been attacking me because of my stance, which will never change. And then again, they tell you that Gambia's success story is built on foreign aid. Foreign aid from which country? In the West. Do you understand? We are not dependent on foreign aid. And I don't think if we are dependent on foreign aid for our livelihood, I will be taking the distance I take. I will follow this position of complete independence and fighting for the dignity of the African wherever he or she is, and defending my religious belief. If we were dependent on that aid to be where we are. They talk about foreign aid, but they have never told you foreign aid from who. So I think what is important, let them tell the whole world who gave us what to build what. Do you understand? Because the West are shamelessly brave to take credit for somebody's effort. Let them tell me what they built for me. Do you understand? As I said, I always tell my colleagues and even Gambians that if anybody in Africa believes that the same colonial white man would come and develop your country, you are a big fool. In the case of the Gambia, they were here for 400 years. All they did was take, not bring anything. They took out Gambia. They sold our land. Gambia was bigger than the Gambia was an elephant. In fact, I wish I brought the map of the Gambia in 1578 and the Gambia of today. And one of the main reasons why the British came to the Gambia in the first place was the trade in ivory. 400 years of British occupation and exploitation. The last elephant was shot in 1958. The hill is still there on the River Gambia. They killed all the elephants, all the rhinos that were in this country. They depleted our wildlife. And at the time of independence, Gambia, that was an elephant, was handed in as a snake. If you look at it, don't you wonder why the map of the map of the Gambia is in straight lines? Because they measure from the water's edge, the river Gambia, to 25 miles. From the Gambia, from the edge of the river Gambia to the border with Senegal, is 25 miles. And you know why? Because that was the range of their cannons. So you look at the river, look at the Gambia, at any point is this equidistant. So while the river meandered and twisted and turned, also you can see that they use a caliper or whatever to follow, but the distance remains the same. Up to today, the British will not tell us what agreement led to the reduction of our land, how we lost our land. Do you understand? So when we are talking about development, and they say, oh, Gambia is dependent on foreign aid. Yes, foreign aid from who? Also, I don't believe that we Africans can say, in fact, we prefer to starve than to give him a sirloin steak with insult. Do you understand? And I don't think there's any African country that can say we have no natural resources. In the Gambia, we have natural resources. We have minerals. We've not started exploiting them. We have petroleum. We have not started exploiting it because we disagree with. Some of my crimes are to say we are not going to accept 5% royalty. They tell me, oh, all African countries have accepted that. And in fact, they told me that no African country except 3 countries get more than 3% from their minerals. And so they think that that is a rule
Across board.
that all Africans must accept and tell them you are in the wrong country. In fact, talk to me about 3% or 5% is 5% is an insult. More so telling me that only 3 African countries are getting royalty of more than 3%.
Zambia, my country, is one of
in their reality, in the royalties. Can you imagine 5%? In your own country, in the Gambia, if you have diamonds, what am I going to tell my people? That, oh, don't worry, we'll get only 5%. This is, God has given us this gift, and I want the Western company to come and take it and give us only 5%. This is my crime. It's not only the minerals, but so also oil, petroleum. My sister, you can, if you look at Dubai in 1990 and Dubai of today, huge difference thanks to the oil and gas. If you look at the UAE, you look at Qatar. When I went there in 96, and Qatar of today.
Developed.
And you look at some of the oldest oil producing countries in Africa, I wouldn't name them. It's a sad story. In fact, what is even ironic is that African rich countries, citizens are the poorest of the poor in Africa, and most of them go and die in the sea or hustling in Europe and be subjected to all racist abuse.
So where do we lay the blame on this? In our circles, it's always called the mineral case. You know, where we have so much yet so little.
Leadership. I will tell you a story. Somebody told me, little Gambia, I'll give you 400,000 a month, 400 million a year, and that's too much for a small country. So are you going to give it to me free? He said, no, of course the oil. I said, who owns the oil? And who are you to tell me that giving us 400 million a year is too much for the Gambia. And in fact, we also told him that you're going to have it. Because he calculated 5% for the country. And based on the projects, the 3D the surveys that were carried out, they're talking about maybe 4 or 5 billion barrels. And then they want to give me only 400 million. By calculation, 5% said is 400 million a year, and that is too much for the Gambia. Who is he? The oil belongs to the Gambian people. And then he tells me that just 5% is even too much for the Gambian people. He thought he was giving me a favor. And I told him to go to hell. He didn't like it, and I told him if he sets foot on the Gambian soil, he will regret why he's here. You have mineral resources. You don't say Gambia or any country doesn't have any natural resource. Because most African countries, they have either a river, the river you have fish. But what do you normally see? Foreigners coming to fish. You have the forest, you call it, timber is valuable commodity. But because they come and tell us, give us the impression that they are doing us a favor to come coming to exploit our resources, they are doing us a favor. And then the president sits there and then tell you, don't worry, we give you this amount and we put it there. They do not even negotiate with you. They tell you that this is how much we will give you. And then, yes. And your children can come for visa. We give you visa, free entry to, I won't name the country, and say, oh yes, this is a ticket to heaven. You forget that you are representing the people.
So where does African solutions lie in terms of making sure that our natural resources remain?
With regards to natural resources, the solution lies in African leadership. There are some leaders that are serving them. We know them. They can sell their country, and a lot of them have done so. Those are the type of leaders you never hear being criticized by the Western media. These are their people, boys and girls. Oh, they say African leaders, democracy. Democracy. Is it a 21st century invention? No. What happened to Africans while the Greeks were practicing democracy? Remember, it originated from Greece. And why are Africans not being even compensated by by an apology for the colonialism and slave trade? Now, you come from where? Zambia?
I come from Zambia, yes. The copper-rich country.
When I was in Form 5, in fact, throughout our geography lessons, we talk about minerals, like copper in Zambia, and so it was being taught by Uganda, Mr. Bisasi. Sierra Leone, Mr. Kamara. And each time we see, when we don't want to call his name, copper in Zambia. So we know of Ndola and others. Since we were going to school, and copper is one of the most expensive metals today. I don't want to go further than that. But since the time I was going to high school, up to today, producing copper is the largest producer of copper in Africa.
And you talked about the royalties being 3 to 5%.
And now I wonder, and now I know why, because I was wondering if that amount of money, the company that is mining copper in Zambia, it has assets in billions of dollars. And the country that owns the copper doesn't have 10 billion in its reserves. So that tells a story. But you have to be brave enough to say, I'm going to accept this, I will not accept this. For me, I made it very clear. They told me, I told you they cited other countries that accepted 3% or less. And I said, that is not the Gambia. So my only crime with the West is standing up to them to say, I'm going to defend Africa. They can call me any name they want. They can pay Gambians or other people to criticize me. I don't give a damn. What I care about is the welfare of my people, the dignity of my people, and whatever is in this country was given to us by God. Unfortunately, the British sold the greater part of my country from an elephant. They turned it into a snake. But this is what we accept today as the will of God. But Gambia will never be enslaved again or colonize again. That is never going to happen. And I wish that my colleagues in Africa would also stand up and ensure that their countries are not enslaved or colonized. Now, is it physical colonization or colonization in whatever form? Be it in the exploitation of your mineral resources or whatever. Because then they come to you, what I find insulting, that is why most of the time, in fact, I don't talk to them. I refer them to the officials that are responsible. They come to you as if they are doing a favor for you to exploit your resources. So they give you the impression that, oh yeah, this is the only chance I have this is God coming to me, so I should grab it. You grab it, you be producing, and your people are becoming poorer. And then, at the end of the day, they will say we took everything. They say, massive corruption, he's a dictator. If you are working for them, and you outlive your usefulness, they turn against you and call you a dictator. In 1978, in our school, high school, 79, yeah, I remember in my Form 2, we had a school assembly on Monday. It's the year assembly, and then religious what we call house assembly on Wednesdays. Now, the principal assembled us, and there was this big poster of Mobutu. And saying Mobutu, what he had to tell us was that Mobutu was the 7th richest man in the world in 1979. He was the most important ally of the United States of America and the West. And he prolonged apartheid. I remember the one country that paid a high price for the liberation of Southern Africa is Zambia, where it allowed bases for all the liberation, all the freedom fighters in that part of the world. And he paid a high price for it. Mobutu was the bastion of all anti-African, was the headquarters of all anti-African elements, and elements that supported apartheid, sponsored by the West. South Africa was free to use Zaire to attack. He was the most important ally of the West. When he outlived his usefulness, Mobutu, that white people used to call Papa Mobutu, Wasabanga, and other titles, was buried by 4 people in Morocco. He was turned to a dictator. They brought in somebody they were fighting against in those days because he was a socialist or a revolutionary, and now they used him to get rid of some of their own allies. Why can't Africans learn lessons from that? If they can betray Mobutu, who served them so faithfully to the detriment of independence of Namibia and other countries, they one day got up and say, oh, he's a dictator and he must go. But just recently they did it to somebody also, who used to be a good friend of mine.
Are you referring to Libya?
No, far from Libya. But I used to tell them, why don't we learn from what they did to the Shah of Iran? Shah of Iran, then Mobutu of Zaire, and then recently somebody of somewhere. And we Africans always go, why can't we worship God and instead of human beings? So these resources, today you can only blame African leaders for what is going on. How is it possible that Qatar, that started 98, Qatar was just almost like the Gambia. Today Qatar is, I used to tell the Emir of Qatar that I'll compete him because we are small countries. But I didn't know that there are such massive gas, and they are exploiting, we are not exploiting. But the good thing is that by the time we start, they would have exhausted their ideas, and then we will emerge as a new base. So, but my dear, the problem is, these resources We, the African leaders, deprive our people from benefiting from them. This is the problem. Because if they come and give you 5% and tell you how much the president is going to get annually, and you start saying, oh yeah, you'll be a wealthy person. Yes. It doesn't belong to the president, it belongs to the people of the Gambia. So, I will not accept 10% on behalf of the Gambian people. What am I going to tell them? 10%, they take 90%. Because today, in the case of the oil, we know the cost per barrel. So now if you tell me that there are, let's say 1 billion barrels, the list, 1 billion barrels of oil, 1 billion barrels multiplied by $100 per barrel, you have $100 billion dollars. And what you use to drill the well and whatever, all the capital expenditure is less than 2 billion. So why do you expect me to accept 10% or 5% when if it is 2 billion, you need maybe 5-6 years? Why would you want me to accept 5% for 35 years? Do you understand? So it is a choice. Unfortunately for most of us, when we want to be president, we talk about the people, we talk to the people, we say, oh, you are the people, you are this and that. Once becoming president, we say, oh, the West is God. If I don't please the West, I will not rule for a long time. It's God. And as long as Africans turn their backs on God and their own people, this status quo is going to continue, unfortunately. You have countries that are massively rich in mineral resources. On a daily basis, billions of dollars are being taken out of those countries.
How would the question of living in a so-called globalized world, where you would need to work with partners in the world in terms of bringing in investment to help develop the natural resources, for example, how does it work in terms of working with other nations, investors, and just creating the so-called climate of conducive climate of investment opportunities for business and development?
Well, living in a globalized village doesn't mean that Africans should be subjected to servitude or being subservient to whatever. We are the punch bag of every Western dog, and it's unacceptable. Now, being in the Western, in the global village doesn't mean also that all the rest are bad. I'm not saying that all companies are bad. We have to make choices. Unfortunately, we subjugate ourselves to other powers and worship them, so they tell us who we should work with. This is where independence is very important. Let us believe in God and work within the global village, work with people that have a conscience and have moral values, and they know that this wealth belongs to Africans. Many times you might have heard the saying, oh, in fact, mainland China gives to African dictators without regard to human rights violation.
I was going to come to that.
And then they turn around the corner, run to China and say, if you don't bail us out, our tails are on fire. They talk about human rights violation, and at the same time, and anti-communism, anti-socialism, at the same time, they are the biggest borrowers of Chinese wealth. They think the Africans are stupid, but because China, the advent of China, mainland China in Africa, gives the Africans the latitude to choose who they want to. This is a threat to their hegemony, and so anything to discredit mainland China, they will do so. And then go back to mainland China and say, oh, we want this and that and that. If you understand what I mean. So, we have a choice. It's not only the West that exists. We have the East also. You have Northeast, you have the Gulf states, Asia, you have Asia, emerging powers, you have the BRICS as well. So we have a choice. But what is more important is to work with whoever. Also from the way there are people with a conscience. I'm not saying that all the rest are vampires. There are people that have a conscience and they have always been standing up for African interests, but they are very few. But let us take control of our countries, our resources, and then from there we will decide who we want to work with. It's like you having a herd of cattle. You have only one buyer in the village who is always fixing the price, take it or leave it. And then all of a sudden you realize that there are 5 others, not in the village but outside, who are saying, oh, I'll come and negotiate the price with you. Okay, you say, oh, $10. I say, no. Why don't you reduce it? I say, oh, no, but $10. I think that's the minimum I can accept. I say, okay. Because all the time they say, oh, but you're getting only $5. Now you're getting $10. Isn't that an improvement on you? Now, if the butcher is wealthier than the owner of the herd of cattle where he's buying the cattle from, then something is wrong. If you understand what I mean. When you look at other resources, agriculture for example, you look at cocoa or coffee. The companies that buy coffee from Africa, each of them is wealthier than all the African coffee producing countries put together. And they are buying their coffee and cocoa beans from Africa. And how much would it take you to, what does it take you to turn a bean into a coffee or whatever? It's just roasting. Anything else is just fake. So, I spend all the year working on the farm, harvest it, wash it, dry it. But the world market is so powerful that they will tell you Africa, the fixed prices for Africa's raw materials, take it or leave it.
Yeah.
Do you understand what I mean?
Yes.
Now, for example, they buy, maybe you'll be lucky for them to buy a kilo of coffee at $1. Or let's say, yeah, $1. Now, a kilo is 1,000 grams. Mm-hmm. You go to the supermarket after, you are the cocoa farmer, you want to drink coffee. You buy this 10 grams of coffee for $1. There's only one difference, that is they roasted it, process it for you to drink. Look at the difference. Look at the disparity. And they say, oh yes, Gambia, if you are producing coffee, because this country is accepting it, you also have to sell your coffee at 5%. And that is why buyers of African raw materials are wealthier than African producers of raw materials. And the status quo doesn't seem to change because nobody is challenging them. We take it for a fact that, Gambia accepted this, so I may as well accept it. I have seen a country where there are mineral resources. They have given an exploration license. And those are the countries where their leaders would never be.
50 years is a long time.
Their leaders will never be criticized. But no matter what they do, they are not corrupt, they are the Democrats, despite the fact that people are starving and dying in boats. These are the Democrats, these are all the leaders of Africa. So, my dear, the solution to this is, the problem is with the African leaders, and so it should also be the solution. Let us work together. Africa should be united. You speak with one voice, the same way the European colonialists are speaking with one voice. If you are denied a visa today in one to enter one former colonial vampire, you will not go anywhere else. And today, every African is subject to fingerprinting, as if all Africans are criminals. Now, who gave them the visa in the first place to come to Africa? The world is 3 days. Yesterday, today, and tomorrow. Now, yesterday, they were coming to Africa, and we were made to believe, to clap for them, that, yes, we are part of them. They never required a visa. Today, we require a visa. Not only a visa, but also to buy an air ticket, you pay insurance.
Yes, sir.
At the same time, your fingerprints are taken out as if you are a criminal. You know, Europeans are not required, even if they are not part of the European Union, they are not required to be fingerprinted.
So, do you reckon with all the Chinese coming into Africa, the whole buzz of Africa Rising, what you have just discussed today, this is the right time that Africa should really stand on its 2 feet? And if so, how do we as Africans tell our story of this positivity to counter the backlash that it always receives? Specifically, for example, in your case, there's so many positive things that come out of the Gambia. And I think this is probably where my brother, the broadcasting stations, the television, the newspapers need to be telling that story, that me who is living in London, I should know about these things. But luckily I'm in the media, so at least I have an idea of what happens, the positive stories of the Gambia. But my question is, how do we... How are you going to manage to counter the backlash that comes with all this that always kind of holds us back? So this story of growth is not there. Africa Rising, yes, you hear it when it's on CNN, it becomes news story. You've made an announcement in a way that I look at it differently, today. But if you go on the BBC, Reuters, the question of the Gambia has withdrawn from the Commonwealth is, to them, it's a negative story. So how do we as Africans project this Africa Rising story to counter this persistent backlash? They're going to talk about the human rights we've talked about. That's what they'll pick on. They'll talk about, the physical, the big taboo subject of gay rights in the Gambia. It's all those things. How do we counter? How can you counter that? Because it's very big that the story doesn't get lost in the negativity that comes from the Western media.
Very simply, I believe in God. I put my faith in the Almighty Allah. And as long as I know that what I'm doing is right, I fear nobody. I'm used to this negativity from 1994 to date. But would that make me back down from my stand to defend Africa, to defend our interests, and to defend our independence? I will never back down. You see, there is a proverb in our local parlance that your enemy, even if he dance in the water, he's going to complain that you're raising a lot of dust and making him cough. Do you understand? So, when you listen to the tone of the BBC, they say we didn't tell anybody. Do you have to tell anybody? So we should have taken permission from somebody, inform him ahead of time, and he will advise us whether we should do it or not. That is what hurts them most. Do you understand? And it's not only the Gambia. Every African government or leader is we are not independent. We are just colonies, and we must take permission from the master before we do anything else. And so it happens that, there is this Jammeh who doesn't want to be anybody's servant. Do you understand? Mm-hmm. Now, the idea of the Gambia is benefiting from the Commonwealth, this and that and that. Let them tell us how much we've benefited. And let them also tell the true story, how much Gambia is contributing to the Commonwealth annually. Compared to what we get from the Commonwealth, it doesn't balance. Do you understand? If I have to give you, let's say, 8 million for an institution that belongs to both of us, or for a business, and every year what I get from, annually 8 million, and annually what I get from it is less than $1 million. Who is benefiting and who is losing? So, how do we counter that? We also have a saying that if the dogs are barking in a village at night, and you are the head of a household or a compound head, and you want to know what each dog is barking about, in the morning the dogs go to sleep because they have nothing to do, and you realize that you cannot go do anything to go and feed your family, or you cannot go to the farm because you are sleepy. So, if you really want to do something positive, you have to ignore certain things. After all, who am I to believe that everybody will love? When the same people that are saying all sort of bad things about me are the same people that today deny God. You are more likely to be arrested for worshipping God than for kissing another woman. Now, be it in the Quran, be it in the Bible, God said that that's forbidden to humanity. And they said that is legal. In a particular Western country, you wear any symbol of a religion in public, you are prosecuted for that. That's not a violation of human rights. Freedom of worship is not a human right. But freedom of denying God an abominable action, that is a man sleeping with a man, that's a human right. What I'm saying is, for them it's okay. For me it's not okay. Because we Africans don't know that. And who the hell are they to tell us that we should accept whatever they think they prescribe to be a human right? Who are they? The only authority is God. God has prescribed how we should live in this world for Muslims and Christians. For the Christians, we have the Holy Bible, and for the Muslims, we have the Quran. So what is taboo and what is not taboo, what is a right and what is not a right, it can only be derived from the Quran or the Bible. Because anything other than that, you are moving away from God. So, you see that anything that is religious is taboo. Anything that is evil is legal. We Africans have to, and we say we are independent, Republic of the Gambia. And we have to be told by some British faggot that, we have to, this is a violation of human rights. In fact, they call them minorities.
Yes.
Minority. When has homosexual become a minority anywhere? In fact, when has the world accepted homosexuals? If countries are led by homosexuals, that's their business, but not the Gambia. So, if they think it is right, let them practice it there, but not here in the Gambia. Do you understand? And how many times are Africans being killed in the streets of London and other Western countries by neo-Nazis and far-right or BNP? And those people have never been called terrorists. They have never been arrested and prosecuted. Just today I saw they're taking somebody in Britain to court for something. But they have done things with impunity. An African is stabbed in London. It's like a dog killed in the subway. But if a white guy dies believing that a Jamaican or somebody killed him, a Gambian black killed him, they will get the killer. But when an African is killed, a black is killed, the killers cannot be. When an African dies at the hands of the British police, it's not an issue. But a white guy dies in a black neighborhood, that's a big issue. Do you understand what I'm saying? So, but we African leaders also are seeing all this, and then we go to London or go to somewhere else and say, yes, and then they organize a demonstration for you. Yeah, this is normal.
And they'll get the funding for it.
What funding? Now, tell me one African country that has developed today thanks to the West. Tell me. With all their natural resources, we have seen countries that have been working with them, their so-called allies. If they don't take from you, they don't give you. And you're asking for trouble if you don't want to give it to them the way they want it. And I will not do that. And I love one title, dictator.
Yes, I was going to ask. Are you?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
I'm a dictator of development. A dictator of progress. And a dictator that will not be dictated to by outsiders. But in the Gambia, I'm a servant of the people. So, we have developed, we have come a long way. We still have a long way to go. but we counted only on God and other countries that recognize the fact that we are human beings and that we are a sovereign country and that we should be respected. 99% of the infrastructural projects here, none of them is given gratis. 99%. We have built the infrastructure, we built this country, we took it from a stone age. If you look at the Gambia is divided into two by the River Gambia. The north bank of the River Gambia had never had a highway. Today they have the best highway. Let me tell you one thing. But I don't know whether I should tell you this.
Yes, please.
You know that 70% of rural Gambia is electrified, 75%.
75%.
Rural Gambia. And 90% of rural Gambia have potable water.
And those are the stories that we don't get to hear.
No, they will not want you to hear that.
We hear more on the gay rights, the executions, and this is why I'm saying. Yeah.
There was a country that have taken that gathered up an entire group of people to a highway in plain in broad daylight and shot them because they belong to some what they call terrorist organization without trial. Nobody said anything. They say, oh yeah, they are fighting terror. They execute people on a daily basis. Nobody saying anything. They kill people, even young people are being killed in this particular country. Nobody saying anything. But Gambia, people, we executed murderers and we're going to execute more, even if the sky is to explode. Now, if they abolish the death penalty, that doesn't mean that they should impose that on Gambia or third world countries. But one thing that Africans have to understand is that there are people are migrating to Africa. And so they don't want those people to be one day convicted and sentenced to death and hung in Africa, because it will be taboo for a black man to hang a white man, when they were very happy to hang black men in their own countries.
Put it in the current issue, just on the capital punishment and the lynching that happened in America,
Lynching, they have been hanging people even in Africa during the colonial era. You will not read any history, true history of Africa where the king orders somebody to be hanged. The idea of the death penalty, they brought it. In those days, you pay in kind, the number of goats or the number of days that you have to pay for the offense that you have committed or communal work. There wasn't anything like prison. The only time somebody is killed is when we fight against each other. When the different kingdoms fight against each other or different tribes clash. So the idea of prison, in your local language, do you have the word indigenous word prison? No. They say, yes, it's cruel and unusual punishment.
It happens in Texas.
What would be more cruel than arresting an African in Africa, pack him like a sardine in a boat, like cargo, go and auction him in America, and then let him live like a dog? He walks and you beat him on a daily basis. And not even we are sorry, we cannot have that. An apology. We as Africans cannot have that.
But they'll argue that two wrongs do not make a right.
So, okay, now, why do the British think that they can be teachers of democracy to Africa after looting the whole world and killing so many people, after the outrageous massacres they carried out in India, in Eastern Africa, and robbing up people of their wealth? They killed thousands of Indians for the Indians saying that they have a right to their own salt. Indians were banned from mining salt that belongs to them. A British company have to mine it, use Indians to mine it, and then they will sell it to the Indians. They are forward from that.
First of all, when I was just being driven in, I saw the arch and the wording there where it says, behind every man is, a successful man is a woman. And I wanted to know, I know Gambia has done a lot in terms of empowering women, and whether that is, how is the gender parity in the running of the country, the Gambia, since you came into power?
Normally, you don't ask a woman how old she is. And I respect that. Though this is not that is not an African issue. What? This new vocabulary, gender parity.
Yes.
During the colonial era, nobody talked about gender parity in Africa. The reality of the situation, the reality of the matter is the fact that in Africa, especially in the Gambia, we do not see ourselves, a man and a woman, as adversaries or opponents or competitors. But we see, when you look at yourself, you realize that you are half and you need another half to make yourself a whole.
Complementary.
We are complementary. In the Gambia, no decision is taken, even in the rural villages. No decision is of importance to the family is taken without the participation and consent of the wife. That has always been there, and unfortunately today they tell you, the African woman, that you are disenfranchised, you have not been empowered, or you don't have land. That's what they tell you. Women do not have access to land. In fact, the African woman, especially in Gambia, is the luckiest woman, because from your paternal side, that's your dad, your dad's landed assets, you have a share of it. Now, when you get married to another family, your husband's landed assets, you also have a share of it. So you have two shares, whereas the man has only one share. If you understand what I mean. So, for the Gambia, the issue of gender is not an issue. It has never been an issue, and it will never be an issue, because people, most of these NGOs are created to make money at the expense of Gambians, Africans. Unfortunately, and then we tend to encourage them. So, I have the longest serving vice president in the world. In the Gambia, thank God, we don't have girls disappearing only to appear dead somewhere in a forest. And they say we have no respect for African women. In the West, women are being raped, women are being killed, children as young as 9 are kidnapped and forced into marriage, and they will not see the light of the day until they are 21 years old and somebody rescues them. In Africa, I speak about the whole of Africa, the number of women that die daily at the hands of men is 10 times less than the number of women that die at the hands of men in the West. Now, in the West, if you're talking about respect for women, in the West, a woman is nothing but a commodity. You want to advertise a new brand of vehicles, you have almost a naked woman to advertise it. Or in the boxing ring, you have a naked woman almost walking. Okay? Whatever you advertise a destination, how do you advertise it? A naked woman. So the woman is being treated like a commodity. Now, how many, they talk about human traffickers, those who traffic African women, but they traffic them to where? To Africa? The women that are being sold into the sex trade, they are sold into Africa? No. So we have the longest serving woman, female vice president in the world. And not because I wanted to please anybody, but that is what I believe in. In this country, it doesn't matter your gender. What matters is your willingness and patriotism to work for the country and develop the country. That is what matters to me. So I don't see the appointment of ministers or anybody into the government as an issue of gender. It is an issue of qualification. Yes.
Thank you so much for that one. And finally, I was really excited about, going to the farm and see how things are going. I know that agriculture is a passion of yours. Do we see as Africa's future being an agrarian revolution? Is that how we see it, apart from our endowment with other resources? I know, why are you so passionate about agriculture?
I am a natural born farmer. In our family today, my family, from my age upwards, only 2 of us have been to school. The rest have always been farmers. So farming is in my blood. But I can't believe when you look at the natural environment conducive to agricultural production available in Africa, and realize that Africa also is a net importer of rice. It is very, very alarming. So, the future of Africa, or any country for that matter, your independence will depend on you, your ability to feed yourself. Because we have seen food becoming a more deadlier weapon than anything else. If I am broke, I have no money, I can bear until maybe 1 month, 2 months. But if I have nothing to eat, I can only bear 2 hours, 2 days, not more. Then I will start taking desperate measures to feed myself. So, and also with this trend that is going on, with this racism, our health guarantee for a prosperous and healthier Africa will depend on Africa's ability to produce our own food. Because this is something that goes into the system. So you are better off knowing that what I'm eating, I grew, I'm the one who produce it, this is how I produce it, these are the inputs, rather than going outside and getting imported things. Obesity, I don't think has ever been a problem in Africa before. But today, obesity is becoming a big problem. Diabetes in the Gambia we didn't have a problem of that. Today we have a problem of diabetes, hypertension. And then today also, Gambia is not an industrialized country. But you see children born with deformities that are horrifying, that are synonymous with highly industrialized, polluted countries. Gambia is not a polluted country. So that can only be attributed to what we eat. And so, the only guarantee to our existence, to our freedom, to our independence, and guarantee of good health is our ability to produce what we eat. We eat what we grow what we eat. Because food is going to become a deadly weapon. If you are not careful, there comes a time when even if you have the money, there's no food to buy. So it is better. Africa should have been the breadbasket of the most part of the world. Because in some parts of Africa you have more than enough rainfall. You have more than enough land for agriculture. Unfortunately, we are not making use of the land. And then sometimes today we talk about we need tractors, we need this and that, we need mechanization. But the worst major producers of rice are not using mechanized agriculture. You go to China and others, they use water buffalo. And sometimes even the women carry things on their backs. So agriculture is very important, and that is why I believe in leading by example. If I sit down and tell people, oh, go to the farms, this and that, I say, oh, what is wrong with him going to the farm? So I believe in leadership by example. And because also the way agriculture, a farmer was being treated before, like, oh, you are a social failure, you are educated, they see farming. What? What's wrong with you? You have been to high school and you're bending here to work on a farm? Not knowing that in most parts of the world, the richest people are the farmers. So, to destigmatize agriculture, I have to go and do it myself for people to see. It is a passion too.
Just wanted to, to just mention as a comment of the Zimbabwe example on, the commercial farmers, which was what, the white farmers always produced, commercial agriculture other than subsistence.
Yeah.
So that's not what probably you envision.
No, of course you see, that is one problem we had, was agriculture in the Gambia basically was subsistence agriculture. And so it is not taking you anywhere. You produce what you think is enough for your family and that's it. And agriculture is not sustainable in that system. So the best thing is, because not all of us are farmers, so if we encourage subsistence agriculture, we are encouraging importation. But if I go what I need to eat, then whatever the one who is not a farmer, who lives in the urban area where there's no farmland, you condemn that person to import food. So let us move away from subsistence agriculture to commercial agriculture, where the farmers, unfortunately, as long as we do not process our raw materials, the farmers would never make it. So what is my policy? My policy is commercial agriculture, mechanize it to make it palatable to young people, and then agro-processing. Because if the cocoa or coffee producing African countries were processing their beans into coffee and selling it, they would have been the wealthiest countries on earth, on the African continent. But unfortunately, because we Africans always produce raw materials and sell it in the raw form, we're not getting anything out of it. And then interestingly enough, most of the Bretton Woods institutions, they tell you, if the government wants to set up a refinery for that matter, for example, leave it to the private sector, or then the IMF comes and gives you a program where you are not allowed to do that. So the IMF and the World Bank also are encouraging the status quo to remain the same, so that Africans will only be producing raw materials and giving pittance for it, whereas those who the rich north would always be buying raw materials and process it and then price it and send it back to us. So the status, if you don't have food, you will accept anything that is somebody who has food suggests that you do. You cannot be independent. I don't think even if you don't have food, you can worship God. If you are poor, you don't have a dime in your pocket, you can always pray to the Almighty Allah. But if you are hungry, it's a different ball game altogether. Agriculture is not a journey that you just wake up one morning and say, oh, I'm going to this place. You have to plan what you need, what you want, how much of it you need. Plan it properly and make sure that you have everything on the ground before going into agriculture. Nothing is more pleasant for me, apart from praying, than just work a long day's hard work on the farm, yes.
Your Excellency, thank you very much for this insightful day, and I think we will not let you down. It's been a very fulfilling interview, and thank you for your time.
Africa Samareo, Uganalanda Tiola, Gambia Samareo, Sopanalanda Chiola Judo, Africa Samareo, Uganalanda.